promote integration, cooperation, friendly relationship between European nations. So you had a war, and then they said, let's establish a formula, a platform for us to cooperate. And within that international organization, the framework of that international organization, the members of the international organization signed a treaty. This is the European Convention of Human Rights. The European Convention of Human Rights is a typical bill of human rights of the first generation, as we said last week. So, civil and political rights. It is a list with human rights. But what was really revolutionary with that treaty was that for the very first time, they established a court. So there is an international court that has jurisdiction, that has the power, that has the competence to scrutinize the conduct of states. And B, and most importantly, they opened that court, they made it accessible also to individuals. So that court can hear cases of one nation against another, Cyprus versus Turkey, for instance, or by individuals. So in reality, they created one extra layer of constitutional protection within Europe, because you go to your domestic courts, first instance, second instance, then Supreme Court, Court of Cassation, whatever this is in your national system, and then on top of that, you have another layer in Europe, again, nothing to do with European Union law, okay? Where individuals, if they are not happy with the outcome of the national, the proceedings before national courts, they can go before that international court, sitting in Strasbourg, which will examine their case, and if it finds a violation, it orders the state to pay compensation and then take other measures to remedy the problem. Okay? Clear? That court has under its authority, that means in different words, the treaty establishing that court and providing the Bill of Rights has been signed by all member states of the Council of Europe, currently 47 nations, from England to Azerbaijan and Turkey, okay, and Russia to Malta. Clear? So, we have 3 cases from that court to examine today. Okay? An equivalent court is the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. The same logic, the same. Okay. In Asia there is no such a system. In Africa there is something, but it is a bit more complicated because it's part of the African Union. It is a bit, it's different structure, but the function is the same. Okay. So, Leila Sahin, what happens in that case? Facts. In very simple terms. So, first of all, who has read that case? Just raise your hands. The rest of you, it's a time for an eye contact with everyone. Did you read the case? Yes? Did you all read the case? No? Did you read the case? No? Yes? No? Okay, in very simple terms, the facts so that we can all be on the same page. What happens in that case? You have Leila Sahin. Yeah. What happens?
So the Vice Chancellor of Istanbul University issued a circular directing students where the Islamic headscarf would be refused admission to lectures, courses and tutorials. Subsequently, the applicant, she was refused written examination, attendance to lectures, basically as was claimed, and then it was a question of was that action legal, and there was a
lawful.
Lawful. And there was a sort of a balancing act between.
Okay, this is the judicial reasoning we will read up. So the facts are simple. What is her job, Leila Sahin? What is her job? What is she doing? She's a student, like you. Okay, so you have a student, most probably at your age. She's studying at the medical. She was studying at the medical school. If I mean, there is a long time since I last read that case, but I think she was a medical school student, okay? At your age, most probably. And she's going to school, she's attending classes, she's attending tutorials, etc. And one day, the dean of the school, the vice chancellor, whatever the system is, says, well, from now on, in our university, students will have to remove their headscarf before they enter the premises. If you have a headscarf, you will not be allowed to be at the university campus. You will not be allowed to go to lectures, to go to tutorials, to take exams, to do anything. How do you find that idea? Do you agree with it or are you against it? Last week I told you, everything is, after all, a question of values, and we do not all share the same values.
Does he has a reason for that?
Yes, this is what we will discuss. This is, yeah, but as a matter of principle, in general, are you in favor or against it? Do you think that people wearing religious symbols should be allowed at the university?
It's the extent of the religious symbol. I mean, I'm wearing the religious symbol now, but no one can see it.
Okay, if that would be visible, would that be fine?
Sorry.
If that would be visible, would that be fine?
Well, let's say, for example, I was wearing a cross and I was wearing a cross out over. That wouldn't be offensive, but if I was doing something that in England is argued as a security concern, as in niqab or hijab, then if the academy is said straight outright in advance, these are the rules, you must wear a particular type of uniform, then I agree with you, Kevin.
So for you, it is permissible as long as it is hidden, doesn't, yeah.
It's
And
not-
or for security reasons.
It's not a matter of being offensive to someone, it's a matter of being part of the dress code.
Okay.
I would disagree because not every religion has sort of an indiscreet symbol for somebody, such as a headscarf. It's such a fundamental part of that religion that, you know, it's part of who they are.
So if you were Muslim, you would want to wear a headscarf and you want to be allowed at the school.
Yeah, because if that's how you have led your life up until university, not wearing a headscarf may be, I don't want to say, you know, distressing to the person, but, you know, it is quite a fundamental change that make them feel uncomfortable and thus interfere with their right to education.
Okay.
But I believe we live in a society, and if there is a reason for that, we have to discuss with what's more important. The society rules that make everybody. We need to think about that. There is a personality.
For you, I mean, this follows everything you're saying, and you will see. I mean, what follows, what we will do today, covers both if there is a reason and what it matters to you. This, I mean, we will discuss it later on. But as a matter of principle, if someone would ask you, a journalist in the street, do you like people wearing headscarf? Is the problem to you? What would you say? Yes or no?
If I like,
Not if you like. If you mind other people next to you wearing a headscarf.
no,
You don't. Do you?
I don't.
But I think we live in a society where we're governed by laws of civility, and I think if it's principle, then for me it's going to be governed by what we prescribe as law says. Even the European Court of Human Rights, if it applies to the European Charter of Human Rights, it says that everybody has a right to express their religion, religious affiliations, as long as it's not prohibited by law. So,
As long as it is not prohibited by law, and as long as it pursues a legitimate aim, and as long as it is necessary, and as long so it is a long list.
I know that a medical student did not have any legitimate aims when wearing a headscarf, so I think it's...
Again, this is a discussion that follows, but as a matter of principle, is it a problem for you? Do you mind if other people wear a headscarf?
No.
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 No? 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 Okay. If someone is a Satanist, okay? Do you know what Satanist means? Would that be, as a matter of principle, would you mind this? If I would come next time here with a... It's my religion after all. You pray to Allah, you pray to God, to Buddha, to whatever. I pray to Satan. This is how I get my power. Every morning I wake up, I drink a glass of student blood. Say, yeah, let's go. One more seminar on human rights. So, would that be offensive to you?
As long as you didn't get blood on your clothes.
As long as you don't get blood on your clothes. Very individualistic approach.
You know, just stick in the corner.
As long as it doesn't affect me.
It doesn't affect you, yeah?
I don't know.
As long as it's not my blood.
Exactly.
It's not your blood. What about you, the rest of you? Can I ask you to switch off your phones and... sorry. Can I ask you to switch off your phones and participate here? Let's discuss. Ah, the dictionary. Okay. Something evil. Diabolic. So, do you mind with people who cover their face? Is it a problem to you? Would you marry men? Would you marry a woman like that? No. Would you?
Yeah, sure.
Would you marry a woman like that? No. No. So yeah, we like it. We don't mind as long as it is not in our kitchen, in our bed, or. Would you get married to a Satanist? No. Would you? The Satanist? No. Really handsome, like a top model. Imagine Brad Pitt is a Satanist. Would you get married to him? Would you marry him? No? No. With that, what I mean is two different things. First of all, the idea behind human rights is tolerance. Okay? It is absolutely legitimate. You don't want to get married to someone who has different beliefs, different ideas than you. You want to have someone that you have a good match with, you make a good match with. On the other hand, yes, we live in the society, as long as it is not my blood, as long as it is not, offending me, or not offending me, as it is not causing me an injury, as long as it doesn't harm me, then it is acceptable. First point. Second point. Sometimes, even if you tell me, there are things that you might tell me, yes, I mind it, yes, this is a problem for me, and I will tell you, okay, let's discuss it. And there are some other times that I will tell you, you will tell me, yes, this is a problem to me, and I will tell you, well, I don't care. Why? Because the law, human rights, says, as a matter of principle, you're free to do that. Let me give you an example. Freedom of religion, okay? Headscarves. Some of you told me, yes, it is a problem to me, as long as it is not visible. Some others said it is not a problem, etc. But this is something which is explicitly covered by the law. Freedom of expression, freedom of religion. This is my religion, I should be free, I should be allowed to express it. On the other hand, I can give you the example of the right to marriage between people of the same sex. Okay? Would that be a problem to anyone here? No? Very open-minded class. Anyone here who would find it offensive or who wouldn't like it? Okay, there is a big part of the society, we go outside the university, that they will say, yes, this is a problem to me. In that case, it would be, as a lawyer, from a legal perspective, it would be more difficult for me to tell them, no, shut up, what you're saying is nonsense. Why? Because if you read, for instance, the text of the European Convention of Human Rights, it does not provide right of marriage between people of the same sex. It says a man and a woman have the right to get married. It doesn't say two people, it doesn't say two men, it doesn't say two women. Okay? So, let's go back to Leila Sahin. In that case, it is clearly that her right to wear a headscarf, no matter whether one likes it or not, is protected by human rights law. Yes? What right in particular? What human right?
Article, you mean?
Right.
Article, I mean,
Right
all
to
the
the
time.
living, Article 24.
No. What is the right protected? Leila Sahinsi complained about the breach of?
The right to education.
Yes, and before that? Religion. Religion and education. Okay. So you have a person, going back to Leila Sahin, who says, I'm a student, I'm here to study, you are restricting that right. I'm a Muslim, I have the right to wear my headscarf, you're restricting that right, so education and religion, for some reason. But still, what you're doing goes against my fundamental human rights. So, you're not allowed to do that. What did the court say? And this is where the legal part of the discussion starts.
One of the things they said that was that this circular had a statutory basis, so it had achieved some form of statutory status, because it had also, what it said had also been prescribed by the Supreme Administrative Court. They had held a number of cases that the headscarf was not.
Yes, these are elements in the reasoning, yes, but it's not the core. Any other?
In the summary, they say that the court concluded
Not in the summary,
in
in the long version of the judgment. First of all, what did the court say? Did the court say, Turkey, you breached the European Convention of Human Rights, you breached the right to the freedom of religion of Ms. Leila Sahin? Why? Because you prohibited her from attending her classes wearing a headscarf? Or the court said, no, Turkey, you're right, you did well, you could lawfully restrict that right. What did the court say?
No violation.
No violation. So, Ms. Leila Sahin says, I'm a student, I am Muslim, I want to follow classes, go to my classes wearing a headscarf. Turkey, the university, says, no, if you have a headscarf, you're not allowed to study. This is protected by freedom of religion and the right to education, but mainly freedom of religion, okay? That person went before domestic courts. Domestic court said no problem at all. She was unhappy with what Turkish court said, and then she went extra layer of protection before the European Court of Human Rights. And she complained. She said, there is a Bill of Rights here that says I have freedom of religion. However, they do not allow me to comply with my religious beliefs by wearing a headscarf at the university. So there is a dilemma for me. Either I will be a good Muslim or I will be a student. Well, this is not fair. I want to do both. I want to comply with my religious beliefs, and at the same time, I want to study. I want to become a doctor. I want to offer to the society and get rich, most probably. Okay? The court, both domestic courts and the International Court of Human Rights, said, no, you cannot do both. You can be a good Muslim outside the school, but when you get into the school, you will have to choose. Either a Muslim or a student. Is this a good conclusion? What do you think? Do you agree with it? Had you been a judge, okay, would you reach the same conclusion?
Culturally, being English, being brought up in a situation where you must wear a uniform for school.
You turn. To that ladies and gentleman over there who said that human rights are universal. Culturally, being an English, if human rights are universal, this is the argument last week. If human rights are universal, then being an English, being someone from Zimbabwe or from China, it doesn't matter. Human rights are the same all over the world. This is the universality of human rights.
Did you do what he did last week and want to come into take it? well, wanted to do last week, well, actually did. Well, there's a dress code. So if you're coming into university, there's a certain dress code, there's certain standards that you agree to before you actually sign up for the school. In the Beckham case in England, there was a similar situation where the young girl wanted to wear a hijab or whatever, niqab. She was prevented from doing that because, look, if you want to study in this school, these are the requirements. You don't have to study here. You can go study somewhere else in a particular faith school that your religion will set up for you. If you want to come to this one, this is the dress code. So being English, in my part of my culture, it was like, if you want to go to a nice school, as a young boy, I had to wear a uniform. I had to walk through a really rough area in a posh uniform and fight my way to the bus stop. That was part of the thing of my education. If I didn't want to wear a uniform, I would go to a cap
to
school.
wear a tracksuit or ripped jeans is a choice which is not fundamental to you as a person. Wearing a headscarf is such a key part of a religion, which is again a fundamental part of who you are as a person. So therefore, I don't think you can compare the two of wanting to have a certain fashion
I think
choice.
the key is the option.
But it's not. Why should you
No, it's the option
sacrifice
to
the
go to
right?
school. It's not an option of wearing it. It's an option of where you wear it.
Again, I think the differentiation here comes from the fact that if it's a particular law, it applies to a public university as well. If Istanbul University is a public university, then she should be allowed to wear a hijab, a niqab, whatever it is that she wants to wear, because it's a government institution, and the government ensures and assures everyone the right to freedom to practice religion.
But if we take the example of a Jewish guy wearing a yarmulke at a Sharia school, do you think that would go down well?
At a what?
Let me interfere here because you will derail me, and I want to focus on specific things because there are a number of conclusions to reach. But this is evidence of the fact that human rights is so value oriented that you don't need to be a lawyer in order to have your position. These are things that we discuss in our everyday life. What is right, what is wrong, etc. What we will do today here is to put this into a legal box. And we can then say that the box is wrong, that the box is not good, that we should change it. But what we will discuss, at least in the first part of today's session, is what are the tools, what is the logic, what is the reasoning, what are the steps to follow in order to reach conclusions in such situations. Okay? So, let's make a step back. Human rights are not universal, or they might be to, we will discuss this again, it will be coming back again and again in this seminar. But, do you think that this is a good judgment? The facts of the case are a student wants to wear hijab at the university, and the university says no. Either you're a student or you're a Muslim. You cannot be both at the campus. And the European Court of Human Rights said yes, there is something called freedom of religion. Yes, you're covered by freedom of religion. However, freedom of religion, because human rights are not inalienable and absolute and all this, or there might be, we'll see this again today, your right, your freedom of religion should be narrowed, should be limited, and it is lawful, they ask you to remove your headscarf, hijab, religious symbols before you get into the school. Do you think this is a good judgment or not? Forget the reasoning, just the outcome. If you would read it in the newspapers, they would tell you, well, in Turkey, you cannot be both a Muslim and a student. You need to choose. No. 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 Yes.
Only because the university, it described itself as a secular university. So from 1994, they had regulations as to wearing headscarves. When the student was applying to the university, there was knowledge that the university did not prescribe for headscarves.
It is not the university that's secular, it is the state. So, the state, Turkey, the majority of the population is Muslim. However, the state as such, constitutionally, we don't know what will happen in 10 years' time because Erdogan is changing everything, but at the moment, since the 20s, after Kemal Atatürk, anyway, Turkish history is not of importance for this class, the state presents itself as neutral. Secularism means that the state has no official religion. There are states that have an official religion. For instance, the UK is a religious country. What is the
But the Protestant, what's called the Church of England.
Church of England, whatever. France is a secular country. The Scandinavian states are Christian. Italy, believe it or not, is a secular state. Okay? Neutrality. Greece, for instance, my own country, is Christian, Orthodox. It's an official religion. You will find it in the constitution. Turkey, in the constitution, they say we are neutral. So it is not a university, it is the state as such. And this is a big difference.
I don't think having a student wearing a hairscarf would affect the secularism of a state or of an institution. Like, it's very independent because, yeah, you are part of the population, but...
Secular means I'm neutral.
Yeah.
Neutral means I'm closing my eyes and I don't care. If you want to be a Jewish, you're a Jewish. If you want to be a Christian, you're a Christian. If you want to be... okay. It doesn't mean that you all have to be without headscarf, that you all have to hide your cross, crucifix, whatever it's called.
Yeah, no, but my main point there was that there had been regulations existing since 1994 prior to the applying.
So she knew.
So she knew that there was a restriction to wearing headscarves.
But at the beginning, she was allowed to wear her headscarf. She was studying for a number of years wearing the headscarf. But then the rector of the university, the dean, whatever, said, from now on, in our university, you're not allowed to wear a headscarf. So,
But did he have a reason for that, or it was just?
did you read the
because-
judgment?
No, I tried to.
Read the judgment
Not
and you...
the long one. Yes.
There is a reason.
Yeah.
Before that, is it a good decision, irrespective of the reason, etc.? Does it sound rational to you? Does it match with, does it satisfy your moral beliefs?
I'd say no. Having read judgments in the past about a similar case, there was a woman that wanted to work in a primary school. She wanted to wear a full-length skirt, I'm not sure what.
In France.
I think it was in France, and she was refused the
Mhm.
job, and she lost the judgment. But that was on a health and safety grounds. This is just for the sake of it, which in my head doesn't add up.
Okay. This allows me to make another point, and we go to the reasoning of the court. Is this case the same as the one we are examining now? The case you're referring to is whether in France primary school teachers should be allowed to have religious symbols. Is this the same as a student, not a teacher, student at the university, not at the primary school? Is it the same case? Would we say that the conclusions reached in Leila Sahin, right or wrong conclusions, leave it aside this question, we could simply enough transfer them in that case?
Not necessarily. It can be quite different, but I think kind of the underlying principle of, in what circumstances can you ban a
But
religion?
are the circumstances the same? This is what I'm asking you.
Not necessarily.
I would say these are two different cases. They seem to be similar because they both have to do with religious symbols, they both have to do with education, but in the end, the circumstances are fundamentally different. Which means, and this is where we're getting at the core legal dimension of the case we have to discuss, that we can make those assessments following the tools, using the tools that we will discuss in a minute, only in the light of the particular circumstances of each case. They change. The tools are the same, but the output changes depending on what you're inputting, what are the circumstances of the case. Okay? So, let's become lawyers now. You have this case. You have the student who says, my freedom of religion has been violated because they don't allow me to wear a headscarf at the university. The court, and we will see it in a while together, asked a number of questions, and all those questions form a test. It ends up with proportionality. What is proportionality? Any ideas?
The things are balanced against different legislation, different needs in society.
Yes. More detail, more.
I'm just doing off the top of it.
I need technical accuracy here.
I can give you the sheet as a full paragraph if you want, but leave it to someone else.
Can we say that it's a principle that it's conformed by three other sub-principles? The principle of suitability, necessity, and proportionality itself.
Stricto sensu, yes. We will come back to that. Yes. But a general description of proportionality is what is. Okay, proportionality is a tool. What we are doing with this tool, what we use it for.
If there are conflicting rights or interests, then you weigh out which is weighs above the other.
Yes. Yes. Okay. This is how it applies to, I mean, this is not international law, this is the constitutional dimension. Does it, are there any blinds, do you think? No? Okay. This principle, proportionality, applies in several, it is a general principle of law and applies not only in human rights, but in various areas, in a number of areas. But proportionality is a tool. What this tool is doing? We have a right, this is the right. Freedom of religion, okay? You have, but this can apply also outside human rights, okay? Procedural law, criminal evidence. Consumer law, it applies in a variety of areas, in a big number of areas. But in our, for the purpose of what we're doing here, human rights, you have freedom of religion. In general, everyone should be allowed to enjoy his or her freedom of religion. So, if I want to have a headscarf, I should be allowed to do it. For some reason, we need to limit it. Okay? So, yes, you can be a Muslim, you can fast, you can pray, you can go to the mosque, you can do whatever you want, but you are not allowed to wear a headscarf at the university. So we want to limit it, to take a portion of your right. Proportionality is a tool that allows judges to assess whether limiting the right is lawful or not. So it is as if you're a plumber, okay, or an electrician. They tell you, what is the problem? The bulb is not working. What is the problem? I have a right, and someone is limiting it. What you do is, you open your toolbox, and you say, what we have here? A screwdriver. Would that help me doing that job? Well, no, not really. What I need is a hammer. Proportionality is a tool that a judge can use in order to tell us if a limitation to a right is lawful. The key criterion for that is necessity. One of the three elements that you mentioned, okay? What is necessity? Proportionality simply enough says that, yes, you are allowed to limit a right as long as this is necessary for a good reason. So, on the one hand, you have freedom of religion, which is clashing with another aim, another interest, okay? And that interest needs to be balanced, needs to be weighed. So it is like a balance. I don't know how to, like a scale. Can anyone draw a scale, or? It's like, You're trying to weigh those two. On the one hand, you have freedom of religion. On the other hand, you have an aim, an interest, a goal, which is incompatible in the light of the particular circumstances of the case with freedom of religion. So, you're under a dilemma. Either I will achieve the goals behind the reasons why the rector said no headscarves, or you will apply freedom of religion in full. Both of them is impossible. If it is possible, then it is fine. There is no class. But human rights, in most of the times, and this is why I was telling you last week that human rights are tragical. Why? Because you have two good aims that they are clashing. And you need to decide which one to sacrifice. So in reality, you're sacrificing part of your freedom of religion for a reason which is strong enough to justify a limitation. What proportionality is doing is, to the core question with proportionality is it necessary to achieve this goal? Is it necessary that I limit freedom of religion? Or I can achieve it without limiting it? Proportionality can tell you, no, it is not necessary. Freedom of religion should remain intact. Proportionality can tell you, yes, it is necessary, as it happened in that case. So Turkey, you're right, you can limit the right. Proportionality can tell you, yes, it is necessary, but the line should be put here, not here. Okay? Let's see this in a more practical way before we focus on the reasoning of the court. Have I given you the example with the bee that I want to kill in the first semester? No. Okay. Imagine I go back to my office and I find a big bee. Do you know what is a bee? Like bzz, yeah, a bee. Big bee. I want to kill it. Okay? Why? So, this is the life of the bee. This is the reason why I want to kill it. I want to kill it because it is threatening my well-being. It can bite me, and then this will not be at all pleasant for me. So I want to kill it. Do you think it is a good reason, protecting myself, that this is a good reason to kill a bee? Have you ever killed a bee? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? No? Never? No?
Only in self-defense.
In self-defense. The logic of self-defense is another example of proportionality applied. This would be a form of self-defense. To protect myself, I will kill the bee. Does anyone here says, we never kill bees? Just raise your hands. Anyone here saying, we never kill bees? A snake, would you kill a snake?
I say only in self-defense, but I'd leave it to
If you say only self-defense, you have already created an exception. So, under certain circumstances, would you kill a snake?
But the other circumstances, if I was hungry, I wanted to eat it.
Yeah, but would you ever
There's two
kill?
exceptions.
Yeah, but would you ever kill?
No.
Never. Even if
I
it's
try best to avoid it.
okay, you go back home and you find a snake on your bed. Would you kill it? Yes or no?
I follow my sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
In principle, we would kill it. Okay. Yeah. What proportionality? What is doing is the first thing. It is in order to apply proportionality, we need first of all answer in the affirmative that question. Yes, this is a good reason. For that reason, I would kill the bee. I would kill the snake. Okay. So bee is not very dangerous. Let's say a snake. I go back in my office and I find a snake. Okay, and I have three options. One option is to take, I don't know, something like to take this chair and throw it to the snake. Okay. The second option is to take the screen of my laptop, of my computer, desktop, which is heavy one but costs a lot of money, and throw it to the snake. The third one is go outside, take I don't know how many millimeter bazooka, and shoot the building. Okay? Demolish the building. Can you apply proportionality in these three contexts? What is a proportionate reaction? Proportionality means that the damage I am causing, the limitation to the right, is not disproportionate to the aim I want to achieve. And in order to assess whether it is proportionate or disproportionate, we examine what is necessary. The logic of proportionality, and if you're taking notes, this is something you should... The purpose of proportionality, the key function of proportionality, the key criterion is whether a limitation to right was necessary or not. Clear? So, let's try to apply that test. You said there are three levels, okay?
Yeah.
The first level is suitability. The first thing we need to examine suitability. Are the means I am employing suitable to achieve the goal? Okay? Can I kill a snake by throwing a chair, by throwing a computer, and by throwing, by shooting a place with a bazooka? Is it suitable? Can I kill a snake this way?
With a
Yes or no?
computer, probably.
Hmm?
A computer, probably. A chair, not so much.
Okay, something different heavy, like a book.
Probably.
Okay, a book, the computer, and the bazooka. Three scenarios. Are these three means suitable? Are they suitable for killing a snake?
Not all of them.
Why?
It's not necessary to bring down an entire building and destroy more.
Necessary not, suitable. So the first step of proportionality is suitability. Is this suitable? The first thing we examine through proportionality is suitability. There are thousands ways to kill a snake, okay? I'm under a panic. I just have a book next to me, this is what I grab. I have a computer, this is what I grab. Are these means to kill a snake? Are they suitable? Yes. If you would tell me, so the box is ticked. We move to the next step of the test. If you would tell me that these are not suitable means, then this would be the end of the test. We'll tell you, yes, you cannot kill an elephant with aspirins. It is not... You are not allowed to give aspirins. But in my example, we move to the next step, necessity. Is it necessary to demolish a building just to kill a snake? No? No. So, if I would tell you, well, I demolished the building, you go to court, why you did it? Well, it was an act of self-defense. I needed to protect myself. Why? There was a bee inside the room and I felt threatened. You tell me, okay, this is out of proportion. You're irrational, okay? Do you all follow me here? Guys, follow me? Everyone? Second scenario. I wanted to kill a bee and I have demolished, I have smashed my window, my computer. Would you say this was necessary? No? No? Necessary? Guys, wake up, I'm here. I want you all to participate. Is it necessary, in the scenario I gave you, to destroy my computer to kill a bee? So, the test of proportionality fails. It was not necessary to cause that damage, so I shouldn't have done it. Is it necessary to kill a bee? Imagine in my office I only have books, I have nothing else, books and my computer. Was it necessary then to take a book and to... Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So this passes the necessity test, which means it was lawful. Okay? This is what courts across the globe, across a number of areas of law, they do when they apply proportionality. If the test fails, it is unlawful. If the test goes well, it is lawful and you're allowed to do it. The court, in the Leila Sahin case, proceeded with this test, a bit changed, I will tell you how, and concluded that yes, Turkey was right to limit the rights of freedom of religion and education of Ms. Leila Sahin. Before that, 2 more points. Let me give you one more information. Imagine there is a snake in my room. I have these 3 means: the bazooka, not necessary; destroying my computer, not necessary; and then a really heavy book that I can throw on the snake, necessary, yes. But let me give you one more piece of information. I'm allergic to snakes, and I know, or I have a phobia, and I know that once I have seen that there is a snake, I only have 5 seconds before I lose my senses, and I fall on the floor, and then the snake obviously bites me. Would you, in those circumstances, I just changed the circumstances. I gave you, the previous scenario is not the same. This is a different one. Why? Because I gave you one extra piece of information. Is it necessary to demolish the building? No. Is it necessary, given that I only have 5 seconds and I am in my chair, and the first thing I have in front of me is the monitor of my computer? Is it necessary for me to take the monitor and destroy it?
Yes.
I change the circumstances. The same test gives different results. Why? Because in those cases, here I put something which is more weighty. Clear? So proportionality only operates on an ad hoc basis, only in the light of the particular circumstances of a case. It doesn't give automatic results. You need to do that kind of weighting. Third point. Would it be the same in my scenario if I would tell you that it is not that the snake is a threat to me, it is not that it will bite me. I want to kill it simply enough because I don't like snakes. Would it be the same? Would you justify me? The bazooka, you never justified it, but would you justify me? Would you excuse me for destroying my computer or destroying a book?
No.
Why?
Not necessary.
In both cases, I mean, in that scenario, yes, if I want to kill it, it is necessary that they destroy a book. So it is not necessity, it is something more.
The idea of tolerance.
The idea of tolerance.
It's not because you don't like it. It's not a reason for
Morally speaking, in your system of values, you justify killing an animal for self-defense purposes, but you do not justify killing an animal just because you don't like it. Which means, and this is proportionality stricto sensu, stricto sensu means in a narrow sense, okay? So, proportionality always includes value judgment. And this is why many people are accusing proportionality. Why? Because these first two, they simply enough require you to be rational. The third one is not a question of rationality, it's a question of what are your moral beliefs. If someone believes that the life of animals is something important, then you don't justify killing a snake. But if for you killing a snake is nothing, then just kill it because you don't like it. And the question here is a question of legitimacy. In most of the times that we apply proportionality, this one is so obvious that we don't even examine it. So it is the mechanical part of it. It is the technical part of it. And yet judges can do that job. But there are cases that a precondition for this is that you accept that limiting the right is the right thing. And in that case, the question is, shall we allow judges, 17 judges in Strasbourg, to tell us what is right or wrong? Do you understand this idea, or you want me to give you examples?
I want an example.
An example. Are you religious?
Yeah.
Catholic?
I'm Christian. Protestant.
Protestant. Okay, doesn't make it. Imagine you go to an art exhibition and you see a big crucifix with a big genital on it. Would that offend you?
Yeah.
Yes. Blasphemy. Imagine someone gets into here and he starts, swearing and telling bad things against your religion. Would that be a bad thing to you?
Yeah, like an offense.
An offense. This is a class between freedom of expression and freedom of religion. You can apply what is the purpose, freedom of expression. The means, drawing a crucifix and then, I don't know, a genital organ or something like that. Or publishing something, a novel which is saying bad things against your religion. Is this suitable for me to express myself? It is suitable. Is it necessary? Yes, it is in a sense. We can't debate it, okay? But then, behind that, there is a big question. Because someone can say, something, freedom of expression, for me, is more important than freedom of religion. And someone else can say, no, freedom of religion is more important than freedom of expression. So, human rights, quite often, they reflect clashes between values. In the example between the bee and my life, we all agree that my human life is more important than the life of a bee. In that case, this one, there is a consensus, we all agree. So we go to the technical part of it. But sometimes we will have cases where the two interests, the two values clashing, will be either equally important or they will have different value for different people. Which means that a religious judge will give priority to freedom of religion, and the secular judge or an atheist judge will give priority to freedom of expression. Who would give here priority to freedom of expression in that example? Just raise your hands. Freedom of expression, freedom of expression.
I have a question. I have a doubt rather.
Before that, let me do my gallop. So, freedom of expression, who is in favor of freedom of expression? Okay, freedom of religion, just raise your hands. It's one or the other, you cannot escape. Freedom of religion,
Depends on the situation.
situation, art, which is offensive for religion. Freedom of expression or freedom of religion?
I think of expression.
Expression, religion,
Expression.
expression,
Expression.
expression,
Expression.
expression, expression, expression. All of you expression cannot be guys. You're also liberal. It's only you who is religion. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Okay. You will allow me not to take a position in any of the moral dilemmas I'll be asking you to consider here. You had something to say, and then I want us to see the judgment of the court to show you how this works in context.
Yeah, so under Indian constitutional law, when you're studying fundamental rights, it says that your right exists till the point where it interferes with somebody else's fundamental rights. So is it the same when you say my freedom of expression exists?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
So, In reality, in constitutional human rights, and what we're doing here, you will have human rights versus two different things. Either it will be another human right, freedom of religion versus freedom of expression, or it will be freedom of religion, freedom of expression, human right versus what we call general interest. General interest is a general concept that its content depends on its case. It is an empty box, and in each case we will give it a different content. Okay? So, what was the general interest protected? Let's go back to Leila Shahin, to the case of the European Court of Human Rights. What was the interest, the general... The rector of the university said, we need to limit your freedom of religion. You will be allowed to pray, you will be allowed to fast, not to eat during the day, as Muslims do during the Ramadan, for instance. You will be allowed to do whatever you want, but no headscarf at the university. Why? There must be a reason, as you said, a general interest, something that will be outweighing, that we will be balancing it against freedom of religion. What was this something? What was the reason behind the decision by the university rector in that case?
It was to maintain the order and then to preserve the rights and freedom of others. That it was a majority secular state.
So, what the rector said is, it is not that I don't like Muslims. It is not that I woke up in the morning and I said, what shall I do today? What shall I do today to irritate people? Well, people with blonde hair, you don't study. People with a headscarf, you don't study. There is a reason why I did that. The reason is because I want to protect public order. Okay? So, you need to establish why there is a violation of the public order. There is a threat to public order. And then you need to balance those two. Let's see the reasoning of the court. This is something I will expect you to do every time I give you case law. Okay? I told you also last week that we will be examining both the constitutional and the international dimension of human rights protection in this seminar. And to the extent that this is possible, because there are some things that are much more theory-oriented, I will be giving you case law so we can examine, so rather than telling you in abstract and in general about proportionality, I want us to see it in the context of cases. Okay? So, what I'll do now is what I would ideally want you to have done yourself before coming to the seminar, so that we are able to and you'll see. I know it's not ideal because of the light, but is it possible to see? Yes.
Yeah.
So, this is the structure of the judgment. This is Miss Leila Shahin against Turkey before the European Court of Human Rights. The European Court of Human Rights is sitting as a grand chamber, which means that this is the plenary of the court. Okay? Either they do this in two occasions, either when they feel that the case is very important, or as a second level of scrutiny when the court has been examined by a chamber and there is an appeal. The court has the power, has the discretion to decide whether the appeal will be accepted, and they will examine it at the grand chamber. This case was an important one. They went to the chamber. Ms. Leila Sahin was not happy with the outcome of the chamber of the European Court of Human Rights, and she appealed. So this is the last world court in Europe. You have 15 judges here, 17 judges here. They explain what happened for that case to arrive before the court, who are the lawyers. And then first important part, the facts of the case. This is where the court explains what are the circumstances of a case, what are the factual circumstances, okay? They tell us, Miss Leila Sahin is a student, she goes to the university, and they, etc., etc., etc. Facts, facts, facts. Then, second part, relevant law and practice. This is where the European Court of Human Rights gives a list with all the laws that will take into account. It can be domestic laws in brackets, I mean, generally speaking. It can be domestic courts practice, it can be international instruments, it can be other international conventions, it can be General Assembly resolutions, but it tells what it will take into account in order to consider that case. So this is the law, history and background, okay. Comparative law, and it says what is happening in another case. The court is simply not opening its toolbox here, and it is examining what kind of tools it can use. The law. This is where the court, after having examined the facts of the case, and after having told us what are the relevant rules and decisions and laws that it will take into account, it starts examining the case. So it says, the applicant said that there is a violation of Article 9, which provides freedom of religion. Okay? This is a summary of the chamber judgment, and then it tells us what its party said. Okay? And the court concludes, the court must consider whether the applicant's rights under Article 9 was interfered with, and if so, whether the interference was prescribed by law, A, pursued a legitimate aid, B, and C, was necessary in a democratic condition. So, the court says, first of all, I will examine if the facts of the case amount to an interference with the right, if this raises problems from the perspective of human rights. If it raises problems, then I will proceed with my test. Prescribed by law is something that only the European Court of Human Rights does. It's not part of proportionality. It is part of the reasoning of the court. So it says, was there a legal basis for the interference? And then, if it pursued a legitimate aim, you can associate this with stricto sensu proportionality. Is it for a good reason that you interfered with freedom of religion? Yes or no? And then necessity corresponds to these two parts of the test. So, first of all, whether there was an interference. The applicant said, Turkey said, the court concludes that yes, prohibiting you from wearing a religious symbol at the university raises problems from the perspective of freedom of religion. Is a problem of freedom of religion. Next question, was this prescribed by law? Was there a legal basis for the rector to limit that right? They examine domestic law and they conclude that yes, the rector, by the decree that he issued, this amounted to a legal basis. There was a law in Turkey prohibiting law in the narrow sense, in a wide sense, not law by the parliament, but it was a legal basis. There was a rule that prohibited Leila Sahin from wearing a scarf. Then, legitimate aim, proportionality stricto sensu. Having regard to the circumstances of the case and the terms of the domestic court's decision, the court is able to accept that they impugn, how would you pronounce it? Impugned. Interference primarily pursued the legitimate aim of protecting the rights and freedoms of others and protecting public order, a point which is not an issue between the parties. So what the court says, yes, that you interfered and you did it for a good reason, you did it for a good cause. You didn't do it arbitrarily, you did it because you wanted to protect public order. Of course, we would expect the reasoning to be much more detailed here. So this is an example of bad reasoning on behalf of the court. We would want much more detail here. And then they start examining proportionality. Okay? Let's see what the court says. First of all, these are the arguments of the applicant. These are the arguments of the government. And then the court's assessment. And I gave you specifically that case because the reasoning is very detailed in proportionality. They start by establishing some general principles on the freedom of religion taken from the previous case law, and then they apply proportionality. In democratic societies in which several religions coexist within one and the same population, it may be necessity, proportionality. So it is not unlawful as a matter of principle to place restrictions on freedom to manifest one's religion or belief in order to reconcile the interests of the various groups and ensure that everyone's beliefs are respected. We live in a society, my beliefs might clash with your beliefs, so we might, while weighting my beliefs against your beliefs, it might be necessary to limit freedom of religion, my freedom of religion, to protect your beliefs, to protect your rights. Okay? What the court is telling us here is that freedom of religion is not absolute. I'll come back to that. The court has frequently emphasized the state's role as the neutral and impartial organizer of the exercise of various religions, faiths, and beliefs, and stated that this role is conducive to public order. So, secularism means that you're neutral, but you, in the same time, you're responsible as a state so that public order is maintained in your country. Application of the foregoing principles to the present case. Interference and the way Turkey works is based in particular on two principles: secularism and equality. As the Chamber rightly stated, the court considers this notion of secularism to be consistent with the values underpinning the Convention. So, you can be a neutral state, this is absolutely fine, from the perspective of human rights and freedom of religion. And then the court refers to the Chamber's judgment, copy-paste, verbatim, and this is a sign that the Grand Chamber is happy with what the Chamber said. So, in addition, like the Constitutional Court of Turkey, etc., the European Court of Human Rights considers that when examining the question of the Islamic headscarf in the Turkish context, this has to do with the idea I told you, again, if I'm allergic, test of proportionality changes. The test of proportionality only applies in the light of the particular circumstances of the Turkish society. You cannot take this output and apply it in France, in Germany, etc. Why? The society is different, the circumstances are different, therefore, new test of proportionality. Okay? It must be borne in mind the impact which wearing such a symbol, the headscarf, which is presented or perceived as a compulsory religious duty, may have on those who choose not to wear it. So the court says, yes, you have the right to wear a headscarf, but these might have an impact on those who do not wear one. Why? We will see. The issues at stake include the protection of the rights and freedoms of others and the maintenance of public order. So, I'm not limiting your right to wear a headscarf just because I like it. I do it because I want to protect the rights and freedoms of others and public order. In a country in which the majority of the population, while professing a strong attachment to the rights of women and the secular way of life, adhere to the Islamic faith, imposing limitations on freedom in this sphere may therefore be regarded as meeting a pressing social need by seeking to achieve those two legitimate aims, especially since, as the Turkish court stated, the religious symbol has taken on political significance in Turkey in recent years. The court does not lose sight of the fact that there are extremist political movements in Turkey which seek to impose on society as a whole the religious symbols and conception of a society founded on religious precepts. What the court says here, can someone explain in simple terms? It is not as explicit as one would like it to be, but what is the court saying? What is the reason that justifies limiting the freedom of religion of a student who is not allowed to wear the headscarf at the university?
Maintenance of public order.
Okay, what threatens public order?
Sorry?
What threatens public order? Hmm?
The presence of extremist religious movements.
Okay, and how are these associated with Leila Sehin's headscarf?
Because it's a very obvious sign of religious affiliation.
Okay,
Therefore, it might incite either a violent response or encourage the movement.
What exactly? What the court says is that we are not applying this in Britain, we are not applying this in Zimbabwe, we are applying this in Turkey. We are applying this in the particular circumstances of the society in Turkey. And the Turkish society is very divided because on the one hand, and this has big history, you need to know a bit of Turkish history here. This has deep historical roots. So what the court says is Turkey is not France. Turkey is Turkey. And you have a dichotomy in the population. On the one hand you have Islamists, Muslims, and on the other hand you have the secularists. And these two are you can see it in the political system, in the party system, you can see it in the society, it's a big dividing line. When you come to the university, wearing a headscarf might be for you a religious symbol, but at the same time it is a political statement. And that political statement is not perceived very well by other people, and there might be issues of public order. There might be fights between students, there might be violence, there might be problems at the university. And because the purpose when we go to the university is to study, not to make politics, just keep it outside. I will move on with this and then we can discuss this if you agree or disagree with the court, okay?
He's trying to avoid problems.
It is trying to avoid problems. So it says, the court in a nutshell says, yes, I buy the Turkish argument that it was necessity, proportionality, to limit freedom of religion. Why? As a means to prevent problems at the university, violence at the university. So, it is a measure of self-defense in the sense. In order to protect, the state has to protect everyone's rights, and in order to protect the physical integrity of other students, I think it is necessary to oblige you to remove your headscarf, so that you are like all other students, so that we are all the same, so that there are no political dividing lines at the university. This is what we'll come back to.
Isn't that Article 9.2 anyway?
Sorry?
Isn't that Article 9.2 the ECHR anyway?
9.2 is what we are doing exactly now. So 9.2 is the preconditions for lawfully limiting the right. In such a context, where the values of pluralism, respect for the rights of others, and in particular equality before the law of men and women are being taught and applied in practice, it is understandable that the relevant authorities should wish to preserve the secular nature of the institution concerned, and so consider it contrary to such values to allow religious, etc. The court must now determine whether in the instant cases there was a reasonable relationship of proportionality. They move on and they say, yes, it was necessary to prohibit the headscarf in order to protect, to prevent a rupture of public order. I'll come back to you. Do you think that the court is correct or not? Do you think that in the particular context of the Turkish society, it is necessary to prohibit wearing a headscarf in order to prevent political fights or terrorism.
I'd argue because of the nature of the university, which is to explore religious affiliation. I would disagree with you on that point. I think if there's one place to argue politics and religion, it's probably university. So on that grounds, to disallow a headscarf, it's probably not proportionate because, you know, in that environment it is meant to be questioned.
You're the rector, and you know that if tomorrow someone shows up with a religious symbol, other students will beat that person.
In that case, yes, that is different.
This is what the court implies here.
I probably
But surely maintaining law and order and public order in the state of Turkey, as using that as justification, you're talking about a country or a state where 99% of the population is Muslim, officially Muslim.
Not really, but yeah.
Well, that's what the US state government says. But if it's a 99% that is officially Muslim and a Muslim form of religious expression is a headscarf, then does it really make sense to say that public order will not be achieved if there's a person wearing a headscarf? When 99%...
The problem is they are officially Muslims, but there is a big dividing line in the society. You have seculars, and you can say people who have a mustache in Turkey, they are Muslim, more Islamist oriented. People without a mustache. So you have other ways to express this. Wearing a headscarf again is a big dividing line. It's either you are with us or you're with them. And with them means Kemal Atatürk, means it has really deep roots in the history of Turkey.
So then are they also going to say that everybody should shave their beards then? And their mustache?
That's why I gave you a pass.
It's just
that's
a Pandora's box. It doesn't end anywhere, does it?
Any other arguments?
I think that as you have been explaining, like from Turkey's history, it is necessary to do so then, to prohibit the use of headscarf.
Then let's
In
ask
order to
Mr.
protect
Erdogan to
public.
save his moustache. This is also an expression, a political statement in Turkey.
This is like a very rooted custom, like something very important there.
Headscarf too.
I don't think we can really understand what we're talking about because we have, at least I've never been to Turkey. Like we have a very Western view of that, or most about like, yeah, so it's like, it's gonna be very different to apply, as you say, the proportionality test.
Do you think that the court applied correctly the necessity part of the test? Yes or no? This is what I'm asking. I'll tell you beforehand, I believe that no. If I would be a judge in that case, I would say that Turkey has violated the freedom of religion of Ms. Leyla Şahin. Why? Because it is not necessary to prohibit her from wearing a headscarf to maintain public order.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say that because necessity has to be like in a way to interfere that is less intense to another, right? Like for example, in this case, the state or the university has the duty to protect their students. So in this sense, they should have like different policies to protect the Muslim students instead of like you shouldn't be wearing your headscarf. Just protect yourself. And you have to protect me. I don't have to be like doing what you want me to do in order to achieve your goals. You have to do to have other kind of policies.
Any other ideas?
It's talk about necessity. It's not necessary for Şahin to actually wear the headscarf. It's not mandated by a religion.
This is your issue. The premise, the starting point is that I am free to have any kind of religion I want. I am free to interpret my religion the way I want. If for me, my religion means that tomorrow I should have a headscarf, I should be free to do this. This is human rights. And then, next step, human rights can be limited. Not all of them, this is the next point we will discuss. Human rights can be limited on the basis of this test. Okay? The court is proceeding with this test, and Turkey says, well, it is necessary to prohibit her from wearing a headscarf. Why? Because of public order protection, etc., etc. And the court says, yes, it is necessary. What I'm asking is it necessary? Do you agree with the court? No, why?
Did they have previous cases of...
They had in the past problems in universities, etc. Yeah.
I think every single thing should be analyzed to decide something. We cannot just.
Just to give you,
share
I have
without-
been several times in Turkish universities, even when I was a student, I had plenty of Turkish friends. If you would go to Turkish university during the period that they are fasting, people who were fasting, they would be really aggressive towards people who were eating during the day. Why? Because you're eating, you're not respecting our religion, you're not a good Muslim. So there was a clash. It is a clash in the society, a deep, very deep. But does this justify limiting one person's freedom of religion? Is it necessary? What do you think? Why not?
I believe it's not interfering with anybody else's right to practice or not practice.
It is the idea of preventing something from happening. I will not allow you to wear a headscarf. Why? Because the other people will be really aggressive against you and you might end up fighting.
I think this is not a reason, because the people should be tolerant about my religion.
And the court
I
says
don't
this
have
is
to
the Turkish
change it.
society. They are not
Yeah.
tolerant. Any other argument? I'll tell you my opinion, but any other arguments?
I think if there was a previous case about someone using this kind of
There is no case
to
in the
do
sense.
something bad thing, I think maybe it can justify it. Like many people are using this kind of to
Imagine you.
boundaries. and-
Imagine you go to a society where it's very masculine society, very sexist, etc., and we do not like women in that society. But you're a woman and you want to study, okay? 300 years ago, you wouldn't be allowed to be at a university. Could I tell you, well, if you want to study, you will dress up like a man? Is it a good solution?
Yeah.
But the court, in justifying its necessity, it said that it was based upon the state's principle of secularity, which it said that prevents the state from making any preferences as to any particular religion, and in that, it allows the state to prevent certain people from expressing themselves in a certain religion, which completely is not proportional at all, especially when you're talking about a state like Turkey.
For me, just to move on to the next case, I wanted to use this case to show you how proportionality works and to see the theory of proportionality behind this. But for me, the court, this is a bad judgment of the court. Why? Because personally, if I were a judge, I would say it is not necessary because you're a state. If you think that someone will react to people wearing a headscarf, then you should go against them.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
should not allow them to come to the university. You should, try them, imprison them, sanction them for causing any problems. But in a democratic society, we need to be tolerant and we need to be open to different religions, etc., etc. But the court, because of the particular circumstances of Turkey, said that rather than having blood in the universities, it is better, I'm oversimplifying here, but rather than having blood in the universities, it is better if you don't wear your headscarf. You finish with your classes, then you can be a good Muslim again. Okay? Any questions about proportionality? Any questions? The very last point from my side about proportionality. Proportionality, as I told you, has a technical dimension, suitability, necessity, and then it has a value-oriented dimension which raises very sensitive issues about who should decide in a democratic society, if it is parliaments or if it is judges and if they have the legitimacy to do that, etc. But at the same time, proportionality is something that we all apply implicitly, without thinking of it, in our everyday life. Do you know the concept of trade-off in economics? Do you know what is a trade-off? Trade-off, anyone? Well, we are all here, okay? What would you do if you were not here? Bet. We don't want more details about it. What, the rest of you, what would you do? Would you talk to your mom in Mexico?
No, they are sleeping.
They are sleeping. Would you watch telly? Go out for a coffee? Study something? No. My trade-off means that you made the choice to be here, and this has a cost. Because you're here, you're not in a position to do a number of other things. In our everyday life, we make decisions, and every decision has a cost. It is the same logic with human rights. And then what we do is we make these judgments at every time. So you're on your bed, and you have the alarm, and you have to get up, get shaved to come to the class here. But you're sick. Will you come? You're very sick. Don't I mean, just cooperate, please. I'm using you. I mean, you're not a good person to. So you're sick. Could you come to the class? No. Why? Because your health is more important than the class. Plus, it is not necessary. It is necessary not to come to class in order to recover. This is a form of proportionality. And you have this necessity dimension. This is the very last class, and I will tell you all the details about the exam. Would you wake up?
Yeah.
Yes, why? Because it is necessary in order to do an exam. But this also at the same time has a value judgment. Why? Because doing well at the exam is more important than 38 as a figure. Okay? And then you can see these kind of value judgments, how subjective they are, okay? And how they depend on the circumstances. Would anyone skip the class to be with your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, spouse? Would that be more important? Yes or no? Huh?
It would depend on why.
It depends on why, okay? If it is the last time you will see him here because he's going to a long trip and he will be gone for the next 5 years, you will spend. So, value judgments. What is more important than you? So, my point here is that the same thing, it applies in our everyday life. We're simply enough taking those tools and we apply them in a structured way in the context of human rights law. Okay? Yes? Okay. Off the record, just list it off. Spending the morning with your boyfriend is a very legitimate reason to, or your girlfriend.
Take your word for it.
Hmm?
Take your word for it.
Okay. Next question. Next case we have to study. Gafken versus Germany. The facts of that case. I don't think we'll have time to go through the third case, but we can definitely discuss Gafken in some detail.
An applicant suffocated an 11-year-old boy to death and hid the body, and then he was, during the interrogation process, tortured, well, threatened with the possibility of torture by a highly skilled man in order to obtain the boy's location.
Yes?
And then it went to court.
Okay. So you have someone who has kidnapped a kid. Okay? I asked you last week, it's only you who has a kid here in the class. So, you're not parents, maybe you cannot feel this, but someone has taken your kid, okay? They have kidnapped it. You don't know if the kid is alive or not, and the person who kidnapped the child is arrested. And the police says, where is the baby, where is the kid? Well, I'm not telling you. Where is the kid? I'm not telling you. At the same time, you're afraid that the life of the kid is at risk. So what the German police said is, you had the head of the investigation says, well, I'm promising you, if you don't tell me where that kid is, we will bring here a highly skilled person who will inflict so much pain on your body that you will tell us in 2 minutes. Don't push me doing this. Tell me where the... Okay. They didn't torture. They threatened to torture. Okay? That person said, yes, okay, I don't want to be tortured, but he genuinely thought that he would be tortured, okay? This is where the kid is. They went and they found the kid dead. When they threatened him to... Dead, yes. When they threatened him to be... You should do the reading, you know. This is not a Hollywood movie. It's not a. It's a judgment. So that person said they revealed where it is. They found the child was dead. Okay, and that person was prosecuted before German courts, and one of the lawyers said, "You know something? All the evidence you have has been collected through a threat to be tortured. So this is null and void. You shouldn't take it into account." First legal issue. And the second legal issue, that person said, well, you're a democracy, you talk a lot about human rights, they are absolute, inalienable and universal. I'm just provoking you. Okay? However, you tortured me, or you threatened to torture me, and you were about to torture me. I want a compensation, and I want those people who dared threatening me with torture to suffer for that. I want you to punish them. The German police system and the German system, they gave them a fine. It was 60 euros for 60 days, something like that, okay? And that person said, are you kidding me? You cannot talk about it. Human rights, torture is absolutely so important, etc. And then what is it? 500 pounds? How much does it cost torture? Okay, for how much can we break the law? For how much we can break torture? 500 euros? 1,000 euros? They went before the chamber of the European Court of Human Rights, and the European Court of Human Rights said, okay, yes, Germany is really bad. You shouldn't have told him that you will torture him, but on the same time, you didn't punish the policeman. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It was the life of a kid after all. There was a huge discussion saying about, the court is hypocritical. You tell us don't torture, it is absolute, etc., etc., and at the same time, you don't sanction this. And the Grand Chamber examined the case and said, what did the court say? No violation of
The use of evidence.
So, with regard to the use of evidence, no violation, because they said that he would have admitted his crime even without the evidence that was obtained through threatening him for torture. Yes, and then torture?
That was a violation.
A violation. Okay? So, typical ticking bomb dilemma. A question for you. Let's see the moral dimension of it, and then we go into the technicalities. Okay? Would you ever justify torture? The torturer?
Yeah, in this case.
Two torturers?
Yeah.
They've never tried justifying it. They've never tried justifying it.
Who never tried justify?
I would never try to justify it.
You would simply do it.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but there's the implication.
Okay,
So
yes.
there's the threat of potential torture, but not actually torturing someone. So threat is a different level to actual physical coercion, not torture.
Would you go to physical torture? No.
No, I would
For
not.
no reason whatsoever.
There's other way of getting evidence as opposed to torture.
Other way, so it's not necessary.
No, there's always a way.
Okay. Any other torturer here in this room? Torture? No? Never? Never?
No. The other way.
Hmm?
The other ways.
Other ways, such as?
Which other ways?
There's like there is a medical serum or something like this. They injection in your body that you can.
This raises another important issue, the definition of torture. For instance, I was dealing in Greece with a case of forced feeding. So there was a prisoner who was on strike and he wouldn't eat for a big number of days, complaining for a number of reasons. And then the question is, so it is right to life. should in that case the doctors force feed that person? So they feed him against his or her will so that his life is protected. Okay? And one of the arguments put forth by that category of people is that this is torture. This is a medical act. The way they do it is they put something in your stomach, a pipe directly. So this amounts to torture. So another important question is, what is torture? Slapping you on the face just to tell me where you have hidden the kid, is it torture? Taking your eyes out, what is torture? But this is another question. Let's talk about core, hardcore torture, okay? The one you see on Hollywood, like you have Schwarzenegger there and no. What are the other ways?
The medical way, I told you.
Medical ways.
It's
We don't
torture.
have-
I would say that as long as you interfere in the person's body, it's gonna be torture. That's the reason I said that, like, I kind of support it at some point. I don't feel like it's alright, but also you have to consider that the person didn't care about the other person's life. Like, I don't know, it's quite
Would you
complicated.
ever do it? I mean,
Yeah.
thinking of it from the perspective of a lawyer or a judge, you're sitting there comfortably, you're having your whiskey,
Judging
and then judging, yeah, I
a real
mean,
situation.
yeah, in a real situation, would you ever do it? A person that you love very much? I'm not asking you to tell me. Think that that person's life is at risk. And you have the person who caused this just in front of you. And it's a matter of life and death. This is the ticking bomb dilemma. You have the bomb which is ticking and 1 million people will die. Would you torture that person?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a torturer too. It's like Stevie. The rest of you, would you torture?
But the question is a matter of justifying the state doing it. The state cannot torture, but the individual in the situation.
We will see this.
It's all hinges on the circumstances.
We will see this in the next seminar. We will see
If
this.
within the train station, central station, some mad drunk who's picked up a child and is about to throw him on the tracks, would you tackle the guy, bring him down? That's a form of physical attack, it's torture. You can hold him down, he's going to get up and do it again, just give him a kicking.
So you will do it too.
Well, the circumstances are different.
I'm not responding to the part of your argument that the state only should abstain from torturing, not the individuals, because this is not accurate and this is exactly what we will discuss next week. So, how human rights develop a variety of effects that goes beyond what the relationship between the individual and the state, but has also an effect, an indirect horizontal effect between individuals. Okay, this is something we'll discuss next week. But torturing, is it something you would do under certain circumstances, the most extreme circumstances? Would you do it?
I'd have to say no.
No,
Not really.
not really, never.
There's always an option, I believe. And there's a reason why torture is a non-derogable right.
But think of the most,
Horrible thing that could ever happen to you.
yeah.
Then trade off with them. Tell them I'll give you 1,000 pieces of gold if you detonate the bomb. Then
Don't give them.
then don't give them.
That's right.
The rest of you, will you ever torture? No. Never. If it is at stake the life of someone you really love,
I just,
I think because there's never a guarantee they're going to give up the information that you require.
but it's a possibility. And it's what you have there.
it's what you have there. It is,
Yeah.
in the next 3 seconds or 3 minutes, someone will die. And you have that person in front of you, and the only means you have available is to torture that person.
I don't know if I could. Ask Marie to do it.
The thing is, like, I'm not sure if you guys, like, it depends on every culture, I think.
Yeah.
So, because I don't think, like, you have ever, like,
Yeah.
seen that kind of situation where you feel like you really have to, or otherwise, like,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose many lives or someone pretty important.
Was it a Mexican next time?
No.
No, it's
I think
the
it's
Narcos thing that they would do.
Next time.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think that
We call these stereotypes, but
Yeah, should I laugh then?
I think the big problem in our society nowadays is people are very far from situations and they are just giving opinions and without know the reality,
just
without
said the torture.
touch their reality. No, but it is like that. People are just very far from the situations and give
Okay,
their
but on the
opinions
other hand, maybe this is why
yeah,
we don't ask the policeman or the parents of that person to make a judgment because they are biased, and we
yeah.
go to an impartial court which has the necessary distance to tell us, no, you're not allowed to do. Next question for you. Did the court apply proportionality in that case? Hmm?
No. Okay.
Hmm? Did it apply proportionality? Oh, so that I don't forget it like the previous time that I asked the very last minute. Can you just sign up and register, just one paper circulated so that you'll sign? You can make it start. So, did the court apply proportionality in that judgment? You will not find it in the summary. Hmm? Did it apply proportionality? Hmm? Yes or no?
In which
I expect a lot from you. Yes or no?
in which particular finding of the court? I feel like when in the court.
The court examined two questions.
Right.
Article 6, fair trial. And the complaint by the person who was threatened to be tortured was that I didn't have a fair trial. Why? Because the evidence they collected was the product of torture or being threatened to be tortured. And second, Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which prohibits torture, and the person said, yes, they threatened to torture me, and then there was no sanctioning of that, a true sanctioning of that in Germany. Why? Because they gave a ridiculous fine, a ridiculous penalty, and one of the persons has been promoted. Okay? So they said, if you're a torturer, and if you want to tell me that torture is not allowed, then what you do is, the least you can do is you sanction that contact seriously so that this doesn't happen again. Because if in extreme situations we allow torturing, and then the state says, okay, yeah, you shouldn't do it again. Don't do it, okay? Promise? You're a good boy. Okay. Now you go back to your job and you even get a promotion. That means that next time she will do the same to get a promotion.
Yeah, but the court also said that I think it applied proportionality in the sense that it found the applicant to also be a victim by saying that even though there wasn't any physical harm that was intended, the fact that he was handcuffed and there was sort of emotive threats to torture.
The emotional dimension of it, yeah?
Yeah, it also amounted to a violation of Article 3. So that's
This is a definition of what torture is. So they said, yes, the situation, the circumstances of the case fall under Article 3. You have Article 3. Okay? This is the prohibition of the torture. And they said, yes, the circumstances of the case fall into this. Article 3 applies. Has this right been limited? Yes. Why? Because, not limited, interfere. Was there an interference? Yes, because they tortured you. Did the court then apply proportionality? Did it go on examining, was it necessary to torture you? Is it justified, etc.? Anyone who knows?
Didn't we say that the court said that even if the person had not been tortured, evidence would still have been deduced? So in which sense it did?
Yes, and in that case, this is why they did not find a violation of Article 6. But we are on Article 3, where the court found a violation. So the court said, what they did to you amounts to torture. Did the court make then the extra step to say, was it like the freedom of religion? They said, what they did to you, they prohibit you from wearing your headscarf at the school. This is an interference with your right, your freedom of religion. Is this justified? yes, for public reason purposes, etc., and then you have all the reasoning. So they said, yes, doing this is necessary, was lawful. This is the previous case. In this case, the court said, yes, there is interference with torture. Did they move on to say, well, was this justified
No,
in order to protect the human life of another person, and let's see if it was necessary, etc.?
I haven't read it, but I would guess no, because of the absolute nature of the article. There would need.
Have you read it?
Yeah, so the court has stated that torture, inhuman or degrading treatment could not be inflicted even in circumstances where the life of an individual was at risk.
So, did it apply, yes or no?
No, it just said that
No.
it's an absolute prohibition. of
So,
torture.
you're very clever and you guessed it right. My point here, and this is a technical point I want you to understand today, is A, keep notes. There are human rights that are absolute, and there are human rights that are relative in the sense that they can be limited. Freedom of religion, paragraph 2 of Article 9, as we said, says it can be limited provided there is a law for reasons, etc., etc., etc. The majority of rights are rights that can be limited. The lawfulness of a limitation is assessed on the basis of proportionality. Okay? But if the court says that the right is absolute, then no proportionality applies. Why? Because proportionality is the tool you use in order to tell me if a limitation is lawful or not. An absolute right is a right that can never be limited for no matter what. Okay? Even it is for the right to life of an innocent 9-year-old kid. Okay? So, when the court says that the right is absolute, technically speaking, you can never apply proportionality. Because proportionality presupposes that the right can be limited. By saying that the right is absolute, you are accepting that there is nothing in this world, no matter what, under no circumstances, even the most extreme ones, that would justify limiting a right. Which means that this right, when it conflicts with other rights, you don't need to balance them. Automatically this prevails. Clear? So, this establishes an hierarchy. Absolute rights, we will see this in terms of international law, are jus cogens. This is jus cogens. The rest of it is not jus cogens. The rest of it can be limited. So, absolute rights, never proportionality. Why? Proportionality balances two ideas, two good things, in order to allow us to establish priorities on the basis of what is necessary. But when a right is absolute, that means automatically it trumps any other conflicting rights. Clear? Second point I want to make with respect to that. Do you remember last week I was telling you that human rights are tragic? Tragical in the sense of ancient Greek tragedy. Okay, where you have a conflict between two good things. In both cases, what we've seen is a clash between good ideas, good aims. Freedom of religion is a very good idea, it's a value. But public order is also a good value. Saving a kid's life is something very good, it is a value. But again, not torturing another person is another value. These values, in abstract, they don't clash. In our everyday life, we don't have to make that kind of, to deal with that kind of dilemmas. It is not your life or torturing someone. I can respect human life and I can avoid torturing you. Why? Because we all live peacefully in this room. But sometimes, and this is the tragedy of things, those two clash. And we are asked to make a decision. Decisions have a trade-off, have a cost. If I give priority to not to torture someone, someone will die. If I give priority to freedom of religion, in the other case, there is a danger to have riots and problems with public order leading to loss of life or whatever else in the university. So human rights are a tragical situation where we have to make a choice. Third and very final point on the basis of Gafken. Actually, I have four. Third point and then a fourth one. The third one. When a human right is absolute, I told you that proportionality does not apply. The two of them are incompatible. But whether a right is absolute or not is a moral judgment. People may disagree. You would torture, you would never torture. Okay? If you say, I would never torture, that means that you think that this should be the most important thing, that it trumps all other things. But people have different ideas about this. So we go back again to the stricto sensu and the value judgment logically. In a sense, with absolute rights, what prohibits those two is that you have first answered that question and you said, no matter what, for me, not torturing is the most important thing in the world. And people disagree on that. I had in mind, I will send the link to you via email because we are already behind schedule. I had in mind to show you Justice Scalia. He passed away. Do you know who Scalia is? This is a very conservative, an excellent judge, but a really conservative judge of the US Supreme Court. He passed away something like a year ago, okay? And he's giving an interview and he explains why for him torture under certain circumstances would be allowed. That means that the judge at the highest level, in one of the most ancient and liberal democracies in this world, says that for him, if he should apply proportionality, this is what he says. Okay?
Dat was een bos, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Zat hij er al in voor?
Fourth and final point.
Is the right to life, the right to life is absolute?
No, and this we will discuss, self-defense. If you try to kill me, I'm allowed to kill you to protect my life.
I think it's more about the history things, you know. Like torture is something very important nowadays because we had a history of torture in war, and then people take care of it more than right to life, for example.
We take it for given because we are used. Yeah, it might be. It might be. We will discuss this in more detail in the next seminars. Fourth point, and then your question, then we are done. Fourth point is the following. Qualifying a right as an absolute has a big cost. Otherwise, you're hypocritical. You cannot say you're the European Court of Human Rights. It's very easy. We are liberal. We are not like Americans that they do Guantanamo. We are Europeans and we have our values. But these values, and it's very, in abstract, it's very easy to say, yeah, never torture, never. But then you have a case like Gafken, and the chamber of the court says, well, you shouldn't torture, but you did well. Congratulations. This is hypocritical. If you accept that the right is absolute, you must be willing to pay the cost of that. And the cost of that means that those policemen are strictly punished, they lose their job just because of trying to rescue a human life. Why? Because the means they employed are not tolerated in Europe. They are tolerated in the States, but not in Europe. Your question?
What happens if two absolute rights are in conflict with one another? Would then you apply proportionality, or are there even any rights that conflict with one another?
In theory, they shouldn't clash. Okay, but if so, I don't know any kind of practical case or case law in human rights law or international law where you would have a conflict between two jus cogens rules. Okay, But if this happens, if theoretically, I'm just improvising here, in reality what you would do is either the one of the two would trump, you would give it a priority, and in that case the second one would no more be an absolute, or you would apply proportionality.
Okay.
Okay? Which means that none of them would be absolute. It depends on whether you want to preserve the absolute nature of one of the two. But being absolute means that you're on the top of the pyramid. Okay? Automatically, all conflicting rules go aside. But if you're not absolute and you can be limited, we apply proportionality, and depending on the particular circumstances of the case, we limit to the degree that is necessary your right, so that we create the necessary space for another aim, for another goal, for another right to apply next to you. Okay? Other questions?
So how was this Guffin case not a conflict between the right to life and the right to torture?
It is implicitly. Why? Because you didn't have the parents of the victim going there. If you want to follow up with the Gufkin case, you could have the parents of the victim going before the European Court of Human Rights and saying, you didn't do enough to protect our human life, the kid's human life. And the court in that case would have to say, well, the police authorities didn't do it. Why? No, they did enough, but they shouldn't apply torture because torture is absolute. Okay? So there is another side of the case which could have equally been brought before the court, provided that the victims would be willing to do it. It's like that. We will see this next week as well. State, individual, individual. This is the kid and the family. This is the torturer, the perpetrator, the assassinator. And this is the state. The state in that relationship needs to protect both rights. In order to protect those persons' rights, they have breached the rights of that person. So that person went before the court. The court, if that person feels that the state did not do enough, they can go against the state for being negligent vis-a-vis the rights to protect the life that were threatened by another individual. But we will see this in more detail next week. Any other questions?
I remember the case of the John, someone who was shot in London.
Charles Menezes.
No, it was a Brazilian.
Yeah, in the metro,
because
in the metro life.
And the police, unfortunately, he was like, it's okay because they were trying to
terrorism, etc.
It's